Today we have a very distinguished guest. John is going to share his journey of entrepreneurship and how things have evolved for him. Welcome to the show, John.
Thank you so much, Alan. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Yeah. All right. So I've got to admit that when I was a little surprised you agreed to be on the show, for one, and thankful, but surprised because you've built quite a business, and I want to get to that business, but let's go back to how you started, and then we'll end up with where we are now. Talk a little bit about your background. Where'd you grow up? What was your
So, yeah, I was born and raised in El Dorado, about 2 hours south of Little Rock, in the piney woods of South Arkansas, and grew up there. And during my high school years, I somehow talked people at the local radio station into letting me figure out how to become an announcer. And so I became a DJ and then kind of transitioned into the news department. Back then, radio stations all over the country had people in their newsroom that actually covered local news. And so I, cut my teeth on going to city council meetings and staying there till 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and then getting up and getting stories ready for the air the next morning at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. So it was quite, a young man's game for sure. But I did that for a while. And as I, journeyed through my younger years, I was about to get married, and I decided, radio pays you based on, what kind of fame you can get. There's not a lot of money in it, so they pay you on recognition and stuff like that. And I said, I probably need to make some money. So I decided that I wanted to venture off into financial services, and I thought that was an interesting thing to do. So back then, there was not a lot of structure as there is now in the financial industry, and so I oftentimes worked out of a bedroom in my house and out of the trunk of my car. I would go and meet people at their homes, and we would talk about financial stuff. We'd talk about insurance and investments and all of that, and that just kind of evolved into a career. At some point after I'd gotten married and we had our first child, we moved to Central Arkansas, and I began to work here, and then started Gen Wealth in 2005 with my partner Janet Walker. She and I worked together at a previous firm, and we kind of looked around and figured out that we were the two people that had the most in common and that had kind of a aligned work ethic, I'll call it. She was always, really working hard, and as was I. And I was like, well, this is a good match. Let's get together and see if we can build a business. And so we started Gen Wealth Financial Advisors in 2005, and we started in Bryant, where we both live in Saline County. And so we started in Bryant and literally just kind of continued that genre of, going and seeing people where we could, and doing whatever we could to make a living. And when you're working on your own, you're self-employed, you're the chief cook and bottle washer. So we were doing everything. And so we had one employee at the time, and it was interesting that she was hired before we actually formed Gen Wealth, and we ended up in a situation where she was basically a gopher. I was paying her out of my pocket, and all of that. She still works for us today, which is a testament to her tenacity for sure. But we kind of just started there and slowly built the business through the years. And around, I want to say probably 2015, we decided, okay, let's go ahead and really begin to expand this, because we had reached a capacity. And for entrepreneurs, you know what that looks like. You know what that feels like when you are at capacity and you can't do anymore, but you still have a need to grow your business. And so we began to hire and train people to, come in and do various parts of the services that we do for folks. And we've grown the business now, really literally from basically just working out of the trunk of our cars to now We manage right at $1 billion in assets for folks that are near-term retirement or already in retirement. We've built a team of 45 people and still growing. Don't have any intention of slowing down because there's a lot of need out there. You know, Alan, I think that probably everybody that is listening to this podcast and everybody that you really talk to has a deep down desire, whether they express it or not, they want to be financially independent. That's a big deal for them. They want to be able to know that they're financially okay, that they don't have to worry about making a paycheck or whatever when it comes to retirement. Well, that's been our mission this whole time at Gen Wealth, is to build financial independence for people. And so we feel like that as long as that demand is out there, there's going to be opportunity for us to grow into. And so that's kind of the thumbnail sketch of our journey so far. And I'm excited. It's interesting. I'm 64, just turned 64. And, you know, where most people are slowing down, I'm just excited for the next 5 years because I want to see some plans that we've put into place develop and grow. And so that's really kind of my mission at this point in time. I don't see a lot of new clients anymore. Matter of fact, I don't really take any new business anymore. I work with some of my existing clients, but I have a team that does really, really well at doing that. But my job is to be the visionary of the company and to kind of set the pace for the next 5 to 10 years. And so as long as I've said to my team, as long as I have a couple of brain cells that will talk to each other and still function, I'm still going to be around. So I'm not planning on retiring, even though that's what I do for a living, is help people retire. I'm really having a lot of fun. So that's the journey that we're on right now.
Well, you know, getting to the fun part of the business is what we, you know, every entrepreneur strives for. Let's unpack some of that. Let's go back just a little bit and
Okay.
discuss the early days.
Okay.
Right? We're going to do this thing, and whatever, you know, what process you went through to say, this is what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it. And then sometimes that plan doesn't quite work exactly the way we have written it down. Talk about
Yeah.
that for you. How did that work for you?
You know, hunger is a great motivator. And so when you are, you know, when you're young and you have a family and your wife looks at you and goes, okay, I can't do this and raise our kids anymore. Then you go, okay, come home, and you stretch everything that you possibly can to try to do that. And we were really just trying to figure it out, frankly.
Mhm.
We didn't have a template. We didn't have a book. My partner and I were not, you know, business educated. We didn't, you know, go to school and get a business degree and go, okay, well, here's our strategic plan and here's what we're going to
Mm.
do. There was none of that. It was really just by sheer grit that we just got up every day and kept putting one foot in front of the other and trying to figure this out. I will tell you that through our entire career here at Gen Wealth, we have spent money that we did not have on business coaching, business, you know, development, people to help us to understand what it was that we were trying to do. And so that has been something that we continue to do to this day. We work with one of the best financial services coaches in the country right now to help us chart our path forward in our business. And so I would say that you know, the things that we learned from each of those coaches, and it's really interesting that during that journey, there was the right coach would somehow show up at the right time, and we would get what we could get from that coach, and then that relationship would come to an end, and it was not like we got mad and quit that coaching program or anything of that nature, but we got from it what we needed right then, and we then transitioned to another coach who could take us to another step higher and another step higher and another step higher. And that has always been kind of the hallmark of what we've done, because we knew that we didn't know anything and that we were just trying to make a living and figure this out. but we always had dreams. We always had goals and dreams and things that we wanted to do. I can remember very vividly sitting down very early in my career and drawing out a little map of the state of Arkansas and putting dots all over that map and going, I want to have an office here and here and here and here. And I will tell you that the cities didn't necessarily match up with that original map, because what's happened is that we have opened offices in areas where we had opportunity. So I didn't have that precise of a vision, but I did have this vision of having a multi-office financial services company that could deliver for average working Arkansans the pathway to become financially independent. Now, we couldn't do that for them, but we could show them how it was done. We knew that we had some fundamental principles that we worked off of from a financial standpoint, that if people would apply those fundamental principles, then they would get down the road to where they needed to be. And so that was kind of the path that we took. And it was from that just original drawn out map of the state of Arkansas that we went, okay, let's begin to do this. And that happened, like I say, that happened around 2015 or so, and we began to open offices and grow just exponentially. And now we are much more measured in our growth, but we are still growing at a very fast clip because the demand is there. And so oftentimes you've got to have that demand for your business to be successful. You got to have a good strategy going forward. And I have relied on those coaches to help us form that strategy. And now today we're looking ahead 5 to 10 years and strategizing about, what this industry is going to look like in the future. But all of that is informed by those outside external relationships that we've had with people that have more knowledge than we do. I know very well what to do if I'm sitting in a meeting room with a client. I don't see all there is going on in the financial services industry. So what I've got to do is I've got to draw on the contacts that I have and the relationships that I have to be able to say, okay, I now know where this industry is going. Let me do what I can do innovatively to get ahead of the pack to be able to actually reach those goals.
Yeah, it's interesting the way you worded all that. The underlying word that kept coming to my mind as you talked through that was a word you didn't use, but what I was hearing was the word vision.
Yes.
So vision is what you were describing. You create a vision of what life can be like for your clients if they do whatever it is they do. You created a vision of what you wanted your business to do. You created a vision of how you're going to bring in team. So talk a little bit about how that works. Let's just talk about you and the vision that you had. And then how do you transfer vision, or how do you help create a vision for those that you work with?
Well, I'll say this about vision. Vision is an essential part of growing a business. If you don't have vision, as scripture tells us, the people perish, your business is not going anywhere. And we see hundreds of businesses like that they just get to a spot and they stop and there's no vision, there's no path forward. They just are what they are. What you have to also have is great implementation of that vision. And that, frankly, is I guess, the symbiotic relationship that my partner, Janet, and I have had all these years. We both can function in either realm, either the vision part or the implementation part. My natural gift is vision. Her natural gift is implementation. And so I will look out and go, okay, this is where we need to be in 5 years or whatever, and design whatever strategy that it is that we're going to pursue to do that. And then immediately behind me, Janet is stepping in and going, okay, so if that's the goal, then here are the 10 steps that we need to take in order to get there. So it is really that synergy between those two elements. Vision is incredible, but I've been around people, and you probably have too, Alan, that all they do is sit around and dream. And if all they do is sit around and dream, nothing gets done. And, that's kind of a cool exercise to do every once in a while, is just sit around and dream about things. But at some point in time, action's got to be taken. And that's where the work actually comes in. The vision thing is work. I get it. But the real work is the implementation. how do we get to that point, that future state that you have envisioned that you want your business to be in? What steps are necessary in order to get there? And oftentimes that implementation is not all that clear. Yes, everybody would love to be at X point in the future. There might be 4 or 5 different obvious paths to that, but 2 or 3 of those paths could be dead ends. And what you think might work might not necessarily work. A good friend of mine is the CEO of LPL Financial, Dan Arnold. He has a favorite word. It is iterate. He loves to iterate. He thinks about everything in terms of iteration, meaning that, you know what, we're going to take our best path forward. We're going to try this. And if it works, great. And if not, we're going to iterate again. He doesn't use the word reiterate, but that's essentially what that's how that business runs. And so our broker dealer is LPL. So I get to see that up close and personal all the time. Sometimes I get frustrated with all the iteration that they do, but that is an essential part of what happens in a successful business. I will tell you that businesses fail not because of, bad strategy or anything of that nature. They just stop trying. They hit a dead end and give up. And that is the difference between a business that wins and a business that doesn't win. It's that tenacity to keep going at a problem, maybe in 4 or 5 different directions if necessary to get it right, but keep going at that problem. And I think that's really where that vision and that implementation come together, and you just can't give up on the implementation.
Yeah, as as well as I do, it's all about course correction, right? It's
Yes.
with a course that we've mapped out. If we're in a sailboat and the winds change, we have to change course in order to be able to move. May not be in a straight line. As you've built your business up and you see that there's some type of course correction or some type of alteration, some type of innovation that we need to do, how did you handle that with your team? What does that look like in your world?
I will tell you that this industry has changed multitudes of times since I've been in it. The financial services industry is continuously reinventing itself, and frankly, to do that, to conform to consumer demand, to conform to regulatory changes, and all of those things. Those are all essential elements. Here is one thing that I think is not really oftentimes known. One of the most deadly phrases that can be uttered by anybody in business, and this is particularly dangerous in your frontline employees and what have you, is, why do we need to change? It seems to be working just fine like it is. Well, change is essential. Nothing is ever stagnant. If it's stagnant, it's dying. And I can tell you what worked 15 years ago is not going to work today. And what works today, probably 5 years from now, is probably not going to work in the same way that it did. Now, there are some fundamental things that stay the same without a doubt, but I tell my team all the time that comfort is the enemy of success. When someone gets comfortable and they get in this routine and this is just what we do and we're making widgets and just keep those, little boxes of things coming and I'll make widgets and everything will be fine. That may or may not work for some folks. It doesn't work in this industry. I can tell you that, because you have to be ahead of the changes, because by the time you get something implemented and running well, then something's going to change again. So you constantly have to have this Kaizen, continuous improvement of what you're doing. And you always have to be listening to your clients. We actually have hired someone who was an owner operator of a Chick-fil-A who, Chick-fil-A is great at customer experience. They are world renowned in customer experience. So we hired this owner operator of a Chick-fil-A to come on our team and talk to our clients and say, tell us what you feel when you come to GenWealth. What do you experience? What would you like to experience? What are the things that we could do better? So it's this evolution that we're constantly going out and saying, how can we be better at what we're doing? How can we serve the needs? How can we cater to the best interest of our clients in ways that we might not even know? We don't always think that we've got all the answers. Those answers are really from our clients who tell us, hey, I'm experiencing this, or I have this particular need. I'll give you a great example. One of the things that we're considering very strongly doing is implementing a coaching program for people who are making a career change into retirement. Because for guys, that is a huge shift in mental focus. It disrupts everything about a guy to leave his job and go home and sit down. You've got to not retire from something. You've got to retire to something. And there is a lot of emotional and psychological torture, quite frankly, that a lot of retirees go through in that transition. We believe that there is actually a component of that we can help our clients with by sitting down with those people and helping them understand what life looks like after work.
Yeah, my day job is as an exit planner, and what the statistics say is 75% of those who successfully sell their business regret it. And it's not financial regret. Usually
That's
it's
right.
what you were talking about. If they don't have that plan, you hear stories all the time of some form of regret. So it's a real thing. It's very real.
I have to tell you the stories. Many years ago, I had a client that could not wait to leave his job. It was just like it was driving him crazy. I just got to retire. I think I've got enough money. Can we put a plan together? And so we did. We put his plan together and everything, and we successfully retired him. About 6 months later, I get a call from him, and I can tell that he's in this really noisy environment. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I said, "Man, what are you doing?" He said, "I'm driving a truck." I said, "What do you mean you're driving a truck?" He said, "Yeah, I got so despondent about retirement that I went and found me a job." And I'm like, good grief. I just worked 6 months to get you out of the job that you had, and now you got another job. And so it was education to me to go, okay, there's friction there. We've got to figure out how that somebody doesn't spend their last day trying to occupy their time in something that is just a diversion from life. And that's what I kind of sense that he was going through in that. And so that's kind of informed our thinking about how we can help people make that transition, much like you're talking about.
Yeah, I talk to people all the time. I don't help with startup businesses. I work on the back end of it. But the people that I do run into that are they want to start a business, they want to become entrepreneurs, is one of the part of the conversations I have is it's like, are you running to something or are you running from something?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you find much like what is it in the book, The E-Myth, that somebody who leaves a job and goes and becomes self-employed, they now work for themselves. They just they have their own job that they go to, as opposed to really being an entrepreneur. They end up working in the business as opposed to on the business, and so it's a tough dynamic there, and you've got to have real clear thinking. I don't have all that great clear thinking on my own, so that's why I have a lot of coaches in my history.
Right. Yeah, and I want to back up for a second. You were talking about innovation and complacency.
Yes.
And as you were telling that story, I was thinking of BlackBerry. Remember
Mm-hmm.
back in the day, BlackBerry was the thing,
Oh yeah.
and they just failed to innovate. And now, there's stories like that. It's just as you were sharing that story, I was like, yeah, that's what happened to BlackBerry.
Yeah. Well, and you got to believe that at some point in time, there's something that is going to trump the iPhone. You think about the BlackBerry was trumped by the iPhone essentially. And so today everybody has an iPhone and everybody has some sort of a smartphone, if you will. But there will, at some point in time, we don't know what that looks like, but at some point in time, there will be something to trump that. Who knows what it might look like, but you always have to be thinking about how you can reinvent yourself answer the need. You don't reinvent yourself just to reinvent yourself. That's an exercise in futility. What you've got to do is you've got to understand so well what your client or what your customer needs and wants and how you can fill that need. If you do that, then you can be successful. If you don't, then you're going to, or if you don't ever evolve, then your customer base is going to leave you.
Right. Yeah. So let's go down that path just for a little bit and talk about as you're building your team. We all need some type of motivation, whether it's internal or external, usually external, that keeps us energized in what we're doing, to avoid complacency. As you're going through working with your team or the leaders of your organization are working with their teams, how do you keep your employees energized? Is there anything that you do there that helps with that?
We do a lot of things. I will tell you that it really starts with the hiring process. One of the most impactful books that I've ever read is Pat Lencioni's Ideal Team Player.
Mm-hmm.
And the essence of that book is that the ideal team player is hungry, they are humble, and they are people smart. And if we hire well and our hires are hungry, humble, and people smart, then coaching those people and moving those people forward is a great experience. If you have a missing element in one of those three, then it's tough sledding. It really is. And so I think it starts with the hire, and then it is really all about thinking about that individual as an individual, as opposed to a cog in the wheel of this machine that you're running. That client service specialist is a human being. She has a family. She has, issues and problems, and she wants a future for her family. And we have implemented career pathing in our business. A lot of people just say, I got a job, come do the job. We say, we've got a career. Here's how you can progress. You don't have to progress, but you have the opportunity to progress. And so I think that's part of kind of the magic, if you will, of building into your team. I think that also, we talk about helping our clients to find, protect, and share true financial independence. Financial independence is the objective for our clients, and we build a lot of good feeling about helping people to do that. It's almost an altruistic thing that we can motivate our team with. But we also think that is possible for our team. We think that there is a virtuous circle that can be had here, that there doesn't have to be, well, the clients lose if we win. We think we can win and the clients can win too. And so we talk to our clients about their personal, professional, and financial goals. We talk to our team about their personal, professional, and financial goals. We want to help them realize it. And so essentially we're doing the same job for our team that we do every day for our clients. We just have the ability to actually affect that in ways that we can affect it with the client who's working for someone else.
Yeah, that's, keeping that team energized is critical. And I like the way you connect it to, you're doing the same thing with clients, just do it with your team.
That's right. Yeah, you have to just you cannot ever think of your people as tools or cogs in the wheel. That's where most businesses that have problems with that's where things run off the rails in a quick hurry. Because as soon as that employee, as soon as that team member feels like he doesn't care about me, then they're gone. Whether they're gone physically or not, they're gone mentally. And when they're gone mentally, that's an impairment to your mission.
Right. Yeah. I've never been a big fan of the word human resources, resources like we're a tree or water or something. Yeah. Yeah. It's teams.
Yeah. Our, if you will, HR person is his title is actually Director of Team Engagement.
There you go.
And we want them to be engaged in their work. We want them to be engaged with each other. We want them to be engaged as individuals here at Gen Wealth. There's a lot of stories that I could tell you about things that have happened here that this team has done for other team members. That's just phenomenal, and it wasn't anything that was necessarily driven from the top. It was really just the camaraderie and the compassion. When somebody was going through a hard time, this team rallied together and helped them out in a big way. And so you don't get that in most jobs. Most jobs, you go in, you punch the clock, you do your job, you go home, and there's a iron wall between your job and your family. We don't see it that way.
Yeah, I read something that was maybe this weekend where Australia was passing a law that the bosses or the employer cannot contact the employee outside of working hours. They had to pass a
Wow.
governmental law to prevent that.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
That's
very interesting.
interesting. Yeah.
Well, we could go on all afternoon, but I want to, before we wrap it up, I always like to ask this question, and I promise this is not intended as a curveball.
Okay.
If you could go back in time and whisper in your ear when you were starting this business, what would be something that you might say? One piece of advice you might give yourself.
Man, I would probably take up 3 libraries if I had to really boil that down. That's going to be
Yeah,
tough. I would say I guess your question more so is if I knew then what I know now,
more or less.
what would
Yes.
that be?
Yeah.
And so I think that I would be probably more open and aggressive at not being intimidated. There was a time where I was pretty intimidated about taking on a whole lot of responsibility or risk or what have you in business. I think that this country was really founded on people that were willing to take huge risk. And they did it because they saw a greater need. And I think that at the time that I started, my focus was much more on how do I pay for a family? How do I take care of my family? And I wasn't really seeing the wider opportunity. As I've matured, I now greatly see the wider opportunity. But I think that if I had had that kind of vision way back when and had listened to that voice as opposed to the one that said, let's just be sure we take care of home base and we're good there, then I think that this business might look a lot different from a size standpoint. We're one of the larger financial services companies in the country right now as an independent financial advisor, but we could probably be way larger than that if I had that kind of vision. That's how important I think vision is,
Yeah.
and if I could go back and take that 20 something that was, working out of the trunk of his car and went, go take that risk. One of the best things, I'll do this very quickly. One of the best things that's ever been said to me, actually two things. One that I'll share with your audience. One was, I remember sitting in an office and my senior national sales director came in my office one day. He was visiting town. He came in and he said, "Where's your secretary?" And I'm like, I can't afford a secretary. He said, "You can't afford not to have a secretary." If I'd really listened and leaned into that, I would have probably hired more staff at that particular point in time and taken that risk. So that was really big, I think. So that's a very tangible thing that I can apply there. The other thing that I think is probably the best business advice that I've ever gotten from anybody was one of my business coaches. I was trying to do something, trying to do it really quickly. He said, "John, the best thing you need to understand is sometimes you have to go slow in order to later go fast." And that is to really get grounded in what you're doing and be sure you understand the dynamics of this particular project that you're taking on and get good at it. So later you can run fast as opposed to doing what I often would do is just go off on a tangent, hey, that's an opportunity, let me go run with it, and really not understanding what I was having to do and then having to iterate again and again and again to get to where I needed to go. Sometimes if you slow down and you really take a look at what it is you're trying to do, that will inform you about how quickly you can go in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I'm glad you shared that with the audience. That's good.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being on the show. I want to leave the door open to circle back around at some point down the road and connect with you once again. But I do
Love to.
appreciate being on the show.
Always love talking about business, and it's been a huge part of my life. And if I can share something with somebody else that maybe helps them a little bit, that's even better.
Yeah. So if anybody listening wanted to contact you or anyone on your team, how do they do that?
So our website is getreadyforthefuture.com, getreadyforthefuture.com, all spelled out. And our offices are in Little Rock and Bryant, El Dorado, Hot Springs, and Conway and Bossier City, Louisiana. So if you're listening in some of those locations, you can reach out to a Gen Wealth office there. And our phone number is 501-653-7355. And we'd be more than happy to talk with you about whatever might be on your mind.
All right. Well, great. Thank you for sharing that as well.
Alan, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity so much.
Good deal. Talk soon.
Take care.